Hello class, I hope you enjoyed the beautiful Sunday. Here I wanted to help you with question 100 words project 4, the first question concerning Vactor et al. And the biodemographic walls of death. So what I have, I'm going to start on slide walls of death 3. The age-specific force of natural selection and biodemographic walls of death by Vactor et al. What we're covering here is we're covering deleterious alleles, their impact on biological aging, and consequences for reproduction and fitness. One of the things I wanted to bring out just for deleterious alleles, how you use that structure, sentence structure, the cat sat on the wall, and the deleterious mutation, deleterious allele. I'm only going to go forward with the term deleterious mutation. The deleterious mutation being the cat sat under the wall. I should make clear to you that I don't know of any cancers in the field from my review of the literature that are not based on a DNA sequence change. So that's what we're dealing with here when we're talking of deleterious mutation. We're talking of the deleterious mutation functioning as changing the nature of the cell. So the field Vactor et al. Are dealing with is aging and death. And what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to understand aging from the point of view it's just not one of those things. Things are worn out. Things are getting old. They're going to try to understand aging from the point of view of a biological event. What's the biological process of aging? In that effort, they're going to try to compute what they're going to refer to as an equilibrium distribution. And that's a distribution between the creation of mutations by DNA damaging agents and the loss of those mutations from the population by either the carrier of those mutations, it can be a mouse or a human, the carrier of those mutations either experiencing a fall in fitness such that they're no longer reproducing, or the life of the mouse or human is actually lost. The loss of the individuals I'm describing here is the force of natural selection, Darwin's force of natural selection induced by the environment. The environment includes the food we eat and the air we breathe. The formation and loss of mutations is described in slide 5a. I'll see how quickly I can get to that. I went too fast. Sorry about that. So we're here with the formation and loss of mutations. There's language of swept away, allele by allele. What that language is referring to, it's referring to the loss, creation of deleterious mutation, and the loss of the individual or the removal of the individual due to a decline in fitness, removal from the reproducing population. Prior work in the field had identified that mutation and fitness had a linear relationship in that as mutation increases, fitness of the individual, mouse or human, decreases. A linear theory should keep the quantity and type of deleterious mutations in a nice equilibrium. The population experiences new deleterious mutations and loses individuals as their fitness declines, swept away. Those lost individuals are carriers of the deleterious mutations, so it's a balance between creation in the population and loss from the population. Creation of carriers of the mutation, loss of the carriers of the mutation. Walls of Death 10, again I've got to scroll through, so please be patient. Walls of Death 10 offers a description of swept away and how an equilibrium is reached. We're going to take a look at 10, review it. Let me quickly move forward to 13 and back to the linear relationship. The linear theory of mutation, loss of fitness, loss from the population. Factor et al. Observed things quite a bit differently. That as mutations arise, more mutations, their overall effect differs from the individual effect. So it's not, they think it's not a linear relationship. 1 mutation, 2 mutations, 3 mutations sees a fall in fitness, 1, 2, 3. More specifically, the fitness cost does not rise as much as expected when mutations increase. So the fitness cost going from 1 mutation to 2 mutations does not, the mutation cost going from 1 mutation to 2 mutations does not result in a fitness cost going from 1 to 2. You might stay at 1. That would begin to describe a non-linear relationship. The mutations, the carriers of the mutations, are effectively going to stay in the population longer. The relationship between creation of mutations and loss of fitness, loss from the population, may not be linear. If the deleterious effects do not appear, for example, until later ages in the individual is getting chronologically older, they're being damaged but they're staying around, until later ages in an individual life, that is when we are sort of getting to the point where we have older individuals, mostly humans, having a heavy genetic burden. Genetic burden here is a genetic load of mutations. I didn't mean to say the term load of mutations, but you can use the term load of mutations. Effectively what is happening, deleterious mutations are accumulating before the end of our reproductive lives, which is likely to be dangerous for reproduction. The term walls of death describes this accumulation of deleterious mutations. Think of the wall as too many deleterious mutations to reproduce without injury in the next generation. Factor et al. Predicted that the model is not linear, but rather that those late-acting deleterious effects would produce an exponential model of the relationship between mutation and fitness, not the linear model previously used. The result that Factor et al. Got is mutations are not linearly tied to fitness. This is described in the slideshow from 13 through 15. What we have in that description, I'll not scroll through that, you can read it yourself if you wish. What we have is, we have a situation where the individual is staying around. There's an accumulation of deleterious mutations in the individual or individuals, and there's a possibility of their life spiraling out of control, loss of life, or rapid decline in fitness. If I could just go to 16 very quickly. This is in green at the bottom of that slide. In addition, Factor et al. Found that selection cannot balance mutation, and reproductive lives must lie beyond the wall of death. So what that means is this: selection cannot balance mutation. Selection doesn't remove the individuals from the population. The equilibrium is not linear. It's not a linear relationship. And reproductive lives, i.e. remaining reproductive, but lying beyond the wall of death. The wall here is the accumulation of deleterious mutations at the point at which it begins to impact reproductive fitness. Selection here is again loss from the population or lost from the reproducing population. The individuals do not remain in the reproducing population. Ideally, or maybe not ideally, you could discuss that in this response if you want. Ideally, the individuals do not remain in the reproducing population. The reality that the walls of death lay before the end of our reproductive life cycle is potentially dire, since it allows a large genetic load of deleterious mutations to be passed to offspring. These mutations can accumulate generation after generation and may dramatically impact survival of either the mouse or the human population. Vagt et al. Theorized that this situation arose because in previous eras, these deleterious mutations, when they changed fitness, that change in fitness had a real impact on the survival of the individual. We are no longer, most animals are no longer living in extremely hostile environments. Some are, some aren't. Vagt et al. Theorized that this situation arose of sort of a tight relationship with reproduction and fitness because the environment was hostile. There is some benefits for postponing or minimizing deleterious effects if your life is short. So if you postpone and minimize deleterious effects, allowing the individual to stay in the population because their life is actually short, then that offers some benefit. But we're in a situation where lifespans are now being extended out beyond the wall of death, and reproduction is occurring in those later years. Based on their findings, Vagt et al. Hypothesized that our equilibrium collapse, a late-age population carrying a high incidence of deleterious mutations and reproducing, is a possibility. We can dismiss that possibility with some observations that may be in the field. That's described in, I don't want to forget about the slides, sorry. That's described in slide 19. It is possible that this can be held off if there are some deleterious effects that manifest themselves at an earlier age, removing some of the genetic load from the population. I hope your mind travels to that high infant mortality, because if there are some deleterious effects that manifest themselves at an earlier age, removing those individuals from the population, that's a theory that might explain in part the high rates of infant mortality we see. Vagt et al. Make the conclusion that in order for our species to survive, we must evolve in some way to prevent our genetic load from increasing past dangerous levels. That might mean safer environments, encounters with fewer DNA damaging agents. Vagt et al. Should be reviewed as a paper suggesting the following: that we need safer environments for humans, less damage to humans. The future with respect to Vagt et al. Is further research on the links between mutation, accumulation, and this word they use, senescence. I'm going to leave it at that. I hope that will set you up for answering the questions on this slide, Walls of Death 21. Have a very good evening. Take care. See you in class.